Hey guys, this is Brad from Blue Nile Farm. You know, today it's December 13th, 2024. It's, Friday the 13th. And the last couple of days here in northeastern Ohio, we've had really cold weather. It's been 16, 18 degrees all day long. Everything's starting to freeze. And we just had a huge 60-inch snow drop last week. So it's been really bad weather. But what I want to talk about today is about freezing your tracks and your final drives on skid steers and excavators, these rubber track machines. And one of the worst things and worst times to even try to run these things is when it's this cold. So a lot of times guys get on these machines, they start it up, they warm up, and then they try to move, and all of a sudden they can't go anywhere because your tracks are frozen. So the first thing you need to do is get these tracks and your final drives warmed up so they're pliable. Right now, this thing is so frozen, I can't move. So when you start up your machine and you turn on that key to get going and you even let it warm up and you try to go forward or back and you're not moving at all, stop immediately. Don't force it, because what you're going to wind up doing is hurting your final drives. And once that happens, or you blow a seal in your final drive, you're going to be tearing this whole thing apart. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So the best thing you can do is warm this machine up before you even move. So if you start it up and you try to go forward or back and it doesn't move at all, stop immediately. But a lot of times you can tell just by checking out your set of tracks. And that's what I'm going to show you. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you how to get this thing de-thawed so you can run it effectively and not have any problems. So one of the first things I did when I put this machine in this barn, because I know we're going to get cold, is I went and I cleaned underneath the tracks and underneath the final drive, trying to make sure everything's relatively clean. I didn't want a lot of mud and stuff caked under here. But you can tell this track is so frozen. Look at this. I can't even move it. It is locked in. So there's no way this thing's going to move. So if you ever go out and you look at your tracks and you see them this frozen, you're not going anywhere. So it's going to take a good hour to get this de-thawed. And the best friend is a bullet heater. And you're going to have to get this bullet heater and hit both sides till this whole track will able to bounce around and you free it up, because right now this thing is ice cold and frozen, and there's no way you're going to not cause damage trying to get this thing to move. So that's step number one. You can tell just by looking at it, all the mud on this thing is totally frozen and you're kind of helpless. And that's really what it gets down to. If you did wind up moving it, don't be shocked if all of a sudden you see oil dripping behind your final drive and that seal goes out. That's a major repair, and you're going to have to tear the whole thing off, the whole final drive and everything, to get that repaired. And just the seal alone for like a Kubota is at least $900 just for the seal itself. So that just gives you an idea. And if you run your final drives dry and you don't even know it, and you tear up your final drive, that's going to cost you a lot of money. So the best thing to do is take the time, plan for this. When you got cold weather coming, make sure you get this thing in the barn or a building that's heated, or where you have access to heat. Clean out, make sure everything's clean in between your tracks, your final drives. You don't want really as much any mud in there as possible. And you want to have access to some heat source to free this up, or it's going to have to sit till it warms up and this is pliable again. But right now this thing's not going anywhere. I mean, if you look under here, I'm not saying this is a perfect clean job, but it's relatively clean. And the only thing in here is some wood chips, but everything's so cold and frozen, it's really not going to do any good. But a lot of guys, they'll run and have so much material in here and cake it on that it's unrealistic. So, for me, if I keep this relatively clean like this, I know it just needs to have some heat and it'll unfreeze. But keep your tracks and underneath your tracks free and clear at all times. And this isn't a perfect job, but it's definitely good enough, especially once I apply heat, everything will fall out. That'll make the difference. So when you start applying heat, I'll show you what we do, and I'll show you the difference as the time goes on. So here's my bullet heater. We're going to aim it right at the final drive, and we're going to move this thing all around so that track is free and as much of this is de-thawed as possible tonight. And once that's done, then I can actually start this thing up, warm it up, and then move it. So this is our plan, and this is the best thing to do. Unfortunately, I never leave my skid steer in this part of the building, but my main barn fell down and from the snow load, and I had to get this out of the weather, and I'm really short on space for equipment. and I have a smash tractor that's in the next bay over where is my shop, and that shop's kind of full of equipment right now. So basically it's the best place and the only place I can put the skid steer, keep it out of the weather. So I'm stuck being in this building, but I'm really disappointed that it's so darn cold I can't move it. So with that said, we're going to do the best we can and get this thing to thawed, and there you have it. I want you to see how cold this track is on this one side, and you can say it's pretty clean, but it's very cold and very frozen. You can actually see how frozen everything is on there. But it's, once you get some heat to this and free everything up, it's a big difference. But this track here is so stiff, I can't even put any weight on it. It's just totally tight. But when we go around the machine where the bullet heater's on, you can see the difference. Here you can actually start seeing it starting to melt and soften it all up. So use that bullet heater, get it nice and close and just let it run for a while until everything is loose, including your track. Your track is going to just start to bounce again. And then you're pretty much safe to go. But man, just heat this thing up. Front, back, every which direction. You want, all the way from the front to the back. Just keep applying the heat. And do both sides. That's the safest thing you can do to get this thing to work. So I'm going to let this run for a while, and we're going to come back in a little bit and see where we're at. But I just wanted to show you the big difference between both sides and the difference it's going to make. So it's been over a half hour I've let this thing go on this side. I just want to show you real fast how much we freed this track up. Because as we're applying heat, it's going on in the machine, it's softening up the contact of the rollers, it's blowing and loosening up the mud and goo on the front idler. We've added on the back for the final drive, but the track itself, I couldn't move it before, but look at this. Now I have movement. So I'm not going to be too afraid to move forward with this because I know that the whole rubber track is now softer. It'll do its job. So let's go on the other side, and I'm going to show you the frozen one because we're going to move the bullet heater to that side. And I'm going to show you the noticeable difference now that you see this track moving. Now again, this is the frozen side. I mean, I still can barely move this thing. There's no bounce to it. One-handed, I barely get a little bit of a wiggle. This thing's so cold. The idlers are cold. They're probably frozen also to the track. So we're going to put the heat over here for about a half hour, get this pliable. I'm guaranteeing this thing will move without a problem. So let's get the heat over here and we'll see where we go. All right, guys, so once you got everything heated up and you're pretty much sure that, tracks are both loose, they're both bouncing. I checked this other one that was frozen up, the last one, and it's definitely unfroze. So all you need to do is get in your machine once that thing's warmed up, lift up your blade a little bit and go slow, very slowly. Just don't let it go fast or slow. Just see if it's free. If you go forward and she moves, she goes back and she moves, you're good to go. And that's all you need. But if you try it out and it's frozen and you're not moving and you're driving it forward or driving it back, man, you're going to screw up your seals. You're going to screw up your final drive possibly. It's just going to cost you big bucks. And if you wind up blowing a seal and you don't pay attention, you go use that machine and you run out of oil, you're going to blow that final drive. It's a guaranteed fact. And it's going to cost you big time. I learned the hard way 2 years ago. I had the same problem. We were at 0 degrees. I was in another barn and I was screwing around pushing it back and forth, back and forth. I wound up seeing a little bit of a leak and I blew the seal and it was over. And I caught at least quick enough because if I didn't catch the seal leaking and I would use that machine to run dry, it would have cost me a lot of money. And the guy that repaired it told me that. I was lucky because a lot of guys, they don't pay attention. They blow those seals and they run them dry and they destroy their final drives. And then you're looking at some serious money. So this is the best way to go. Pay attention. If it's too cold, either don't run the machine, but I rely on this machine daily. If I don't have this running, I'm screwed because I need this to feed out horses. Right now my barn went down. I have to climb into this barn and pull out bales, and I'm driving on potential nails and so forth until I do a little bit more excavation and demolition. So there's a lot of things that you need to pay attention to, but I beseech you, really pay attention to this in cold weather if you live in frozen weather like this. And, look at those tracks. If they're tight and they're frozen, don't even bother turning it on. Get the heat to it, and you'll be well worth it. It spent about an hour, hour and a half applying heat to this, and but I know it's done. It's done right, and I need to use the machine right now to get a few things done. And take the time and do it right, and you'll be 100% better off. With that said, I'm going to end the video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this is helpful to people out there. If you're new to running skid steers with tracks and you own one, don't learn the hard way. And, if you got a heated building, these skid steers need to, especially if you use them all year round, they need to be in a place where you can get heat to them. And cold weather is not your friend. So take care, guys, and good luck. Thanks for watching.